I'm going to start that.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Andie Rodriguez. I'm a master's student studying art and visual culture education here at the University of Arizona. Today's workshop is related to my research, a student-centered pedagogy that uses reverse gamification, which is kind of like gamification where you use video games. Well, you kind of make your art materials into a video game. This is sort of the opposite. You're using video game tools to teach visual art concepts. And it's going to be presented as a demo. I'm going to be giving some resources that can be used. And yeah. So my research explores whether the variety and flexibility in instructional materials is more appropriate approach of incorporating augmented reality technology into the arts classroom. And how this relates is trying to see if these tool sets can make the process a little bit easier, moving everything online. And today we're going to be looking at the different softwares, which is Mozilla Hubs, a site where you can create virtual spaces to engage in with your class. Tinkercad, a 3D modeling software. And I will be mentioning Mozilla Spoke, which works with Mozilla Hubs to create customizable rooms, but we won't be going into that software just due to time limitations. So Mozilla Hubs, I first saw it with the Fresno State Art and Design Gallery space, and it kind of came into mind, oh, well, why don't I use that for teaching in my class? It might help some of the students that kind of get a little bit sick of looking at a Zoom screen and listening to me talk all day. I really wanted to try and get away from that approach after teaching online during the spring and summer. So by moving to these resources of Mozilla Hubs, Tinkercad, I really wanted to start to understand, the variety of resources that can be shared amongst instructors, because not everybody's going to be wanting to use digital tools or can afford or be able to. So there's many different factors to consider. Also, the lines of community and support. Who else are using these tools? Was it effective? And how can you manipulate it for your classroom particularly? Also taking into consideration working styles of the students. Not every student likes to draw on the computer, and not every student likes to draw on paper. It's kind of playing with different mediums, tactile like paper and pencil, and digital like Photoshop drawing or MS Paint. And what I'm presenting here doesn't solve every issue. I like to keep in the back of my mind consideration for internet, or are the resources free? And this doesn't necessarily solve the internet problem, but the tools that will be presented today are completely free. I've also included in the chat a PDF agenda of the different tools we'll be going over and how to navigate them, as well as links to the different softwares we'll be popping into. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen so we can take a look at the virtual classroom. Now, can everybody see a table and a classroom with different posters right in front of them? Sorry, just pulling up the chat very quickly. Okay, perfect. So welcome to my virtual art classroom. If you would like to hop into the space, the PDF I've provided has a link on the first page. It's listed as a Mozilla Hubs link. And after clicking on that, you should see an opening entry screen to join the room. So I'm going to go ahead and give everybody a couple of minutes to do that. I'm going to go ahead and grab that link from the PDF and place it into the chat as well, if that's a little bit easier. Now, once you've entered the virtual lobby, it's going to give you a choice to enter the room. And you can go ahead and do so by pressing a button at the bottom of the screen. And so those of you that would like to join the room, feel free to. I'm going to go ahead and give a tour of the space and the different tools that you can incorporate into the virtual space. The nice thing about this software is that you don't need to create an account technically. You don't need to have the students create an account, yet it does remain secure because you have control over the link that you share. You can also boot people out of the room if you wish. So that's also a capability. Over here are examples of being able to incorporate paper or PDFs into your virtual classroom. To look at these, you would go ahead and press the space bar. Let me go over here. And press open link. This would then allow you to view the document in full scale. It also kind of presents a little bit closer to realness, paper being on a desk. This would be a nice way to organize documents, especially if you're going to be outlining what you're going to be going over in that class session, such as color theory. Maybe it's the instructions of what kind of project or discussion that you're going to be going over. So for an example, there's the PDF that I shared with the schedule. And you can pin these documents so that way students don't move them around and that they're secure every time that you find yourself in the lobby. So if you were to exit right now and come right back, these documents would still be there. Over here on the left, we have some examples of 3D models. These are all student works. I was kind of in the process of arranging them, but it's a nice way to kind of fill up that virtual classroom with different materials the students made. This instrument was actually created by one of my college students that was using Photoshop and Tinkercad to create instruments. And these other two models over here are from my younger students in 5th grade that were playing around with 3D modeling. Over here, by this easel, I'm going to do a quick demonstration of how you can import documents and place them onto a surface. So I'm going to go to the center of the screen right here with this magic wand. This is where you can also select different 3D models to conjure into the space. But I'm going to be clicking on this URL button to bring in a photograph. So I'm just going to grab this one. I'm going to create it. And now I have brought a picture into the space. This room was designed so that way if you bring in a drawing, you can place it into the easels, which brings me to my next example of frames. Being able to showcase different drawings if you want to have your students illustrate something and place it onto the wall. It was just really trying to mix different activities together so that way it creates sort of a more fulfilling experience. It seemed to be a little bit more inviting when I presented it, at least to my 5th graders, than kind of just staring at Zoom. But everybody's different, and there are many different kinds of classrooms. Over here is an example of video. So you can be playing a video in there. You can also present a PowerPoint. You can even share your screen using hubs. So let me go ahead and do a quick example of that. There we go. And let me share. So now I'm showing my second monitor right here. But if you need to be doing something on your computer and need to display, it kind of helps prevent the back and forth between different softwares. Let me just go ahead and get rid of that as it falls down. Another thing I'd like to note on the software is that you can change the language, which is pretty nice. So I'm going to go to Preferences and Miscellaneous and switch this to English. It also has Portuguese, Japanese, Chinese, and Spanish that was just up right now. Alrighty, so that is the art classroom. That's in a virtual space. I would like to proceed onto an activity that everybody can participate in, and it's creating a 3D model that we can all then take a look at on this virtual desk. So let me go ahead and stop share. And let's see, we have about 12 participants. So I'm going to be placing, let's see, 3 people into a space. Or rather, let me go ahead and put this. I'll give y'all the decision. Let me go ahead and put this for everybody. So this is the room for group 1. We're going to be hopping into Tinkercad and we're going to be creating 3D models. Excuse me, I should probably show what Tinkercad is actually. So let me pop this over here. Let me share my screen. Here we are. So Tinkercad is a 3D modeling software that can allow for one student to work on a 3D model, or multiple students can work on the same model. Today, we're going to be dispersing into groups of 3. And your group is going to be creating something within the space having to do with nature. Kind of ironic in the sense because we're in a virtual space. But I'll go ahead and put up the links to each of the 3 spaces. And let me go ahead and send you all those links. So once you get into the space, you're going to see something like this. And it's not too bad. It's really a drag and drop sort of software where you can drag a cube and change colors. So I'd like for y'all to experiment and play around with the space, and we'll see how everybody feels towards the end. So here is the link to group 1. Let me grab the other links to the other rooms. And I'll be monitoring the spaces. It's okay if you hop into a room that already has some people. It's more really just to show the collaborative side of the software.
Sorry, I tuned out for a second. So am I supposed to click on one of the groups?
Yes, just go ahead and click on one of the groups. It doesn't really matter which. It's an exercise where Everybody's going to work as a team to create a 3D model.
Yeah,
And,
I've used Tinkercad before, actually. So, okay, I'm going to group 3.
okay, sounds good.
Bye.
So once you click on the link, go ahead and press the button that says Tinker This. It should be on the right-hand side. It's seeming like there's some technical difficulties with the other rooms. I'm going to be posting a new link. This new link should allow for everybody to enter into the one space. So if you could please disregard the other links. It'll just be the newer one that I've just posted. Well, let me go ahead and share what the room looks like. And so through the collaborative link, the idea is that multiple students would hop into this one space, and they could each contribute to building a singular 3D model. And it'll appear in real time as you move and you add things. And Tinkercad does have a couple of different tools that you can use in this space, such as a scribble tool to create pictures. Takes you back to the days of MS Paint. Just draw a figure in the space. It's previewed right up here. And when you click on done, it's right there. You can also provide text as well as many different objects that you can put into the space on the right-hand side. There's shapes, there's different icons you can place, and they're constantly updating what you can place. And it looks like that flower was a bit too powerful. There we go. Just gonna make it a little bit smaller by pressing on these little squares that show up in the corners of the screen. You can create holes in the space as well by clicking on a shape and selecting the color to be caved in. And you can combine these and make cutouts into different models by selecting both of these shapes. Going up here to merge, and then it kind of takes a bite out of that square model right there. You can also get a creative and include these paper tubes and rolls that they have in the Making at Home section. Not quite as satisfying as playing with actual cardboard and tape, but it can give an idea, representation virtually. And the nice thing about Tinkercad is that students can access this on a tablet or their phone. It's not the kindest on a phone, but if there were sort of technical issues and maybe a phone was the only available resource, one could just take a look at what everybody's contributing to the whole. You could still speak with the other classmates through Zoom. It's kind of mixing and matching these different tools to kind of fit the situation. But on tablets, you can drag and drop with a touchscreen or using the touchscreen. And how this would be sort of put into that virtual space is that I would select the model, or I would actually export the whole scene. I'll do this towards the end once everybody that's wanted to hop in and add something does so. But I would go ahead and select everything, go over here to the export button, and I'm going to select this GLB. I kind of call it glob just to remember, like a blob. But I would go ahead and download that model and then hop back into the virtual classroom to present it in the space. So I'm just going to wait for that to download real quick so I can demonstrate that. Okay, looks like it downloaded. So I'm going to hop back to the virtual classroom. I'm going to come on over to this table. I'm going to grab my 3D model. And there it is. I'm going to go ahead and leave it unpinned so they can be moved around, and y'all can have a feeling that you can actually touch things in the room, since right now everything's kind of glued to the walls. In fact, let me go ahead and come over here to these models and unstick them so that way they can move around. Another interesting thing about Tinkercad is you can also include pictures that work much like that circular indentation I made in this cube right here. I'm going to grab an example of that, but what you can do with that tool is you can bring in an outline, a vector of an image, and you can either make it a 3D model like that smiley face that I had drawn using the scribble tool, or you can invert it and place it on top of another 3D model. In fact, that's actually how that instrument was made back in the virtual room. A student had brought in different layers, vector layers, and made them different colors, provided different cutouts to create that cello. an examples right here with this cat. Were I to sort of ungroup these and delete the square, it would leave an outline of a cat. I'm also going to be bringing in that cello, so if you'd like to dissect it. Just going to be 1 second. Hmm. There we are. And so as it's thinking, it's sort of placing all of the bits together. And so taking this model apart, you can see that there are different pictures that were made into 3D models. And it can be time consuming, the more in-depth this is. However, it can provide a fantastic way to make some really cool spaces, as well as really bring forth what you're trying to make. For this instance, it was a student that was also in the College of Music. So they wanted to incorporate into their virtual story different instruments. Okay, so with about 10 minutes left, I'm going to go ahead and hop out of Tinkercad. And I'll leave the virtual space open for anybody that would like to still take a look around. The space is going to be available after the workshop as well. So if you'd like to come back and interact with the space, that's also possible. But I would really like to open the floor up for discussion, feedback, as well as maybe some input on the technologies presented.
So, Andrew, what do you teach? What classes do you teach with this?
So I did incorporate Tinkercad into Wildcat Art, but right now I'm working with a 4-H group with sort of a STEAM curriculum. And it was kind of a way to bring a more friendly virtual space to the students because they have such a broad age range. I was kind of working through 5th grade to high school. The college age student I was speaking of for that cello model is actually a part of my research for the augmented reality project. But I kind of brought them both in since essentially it's speaking on behalf of those two forms of experience, 3D models, virtual spaces, how people interact with them, and are they useful? I really like to hone in that since I don't want to feel like I'm selling this, if that makes sense, because it might not work in every situation.
I had a question.
Sure.
I think this is an interesting use of an immersive, a little bit different type of platform. My question is, I've never used either of those things before, so forgive me if this is like 101 level question, but how do they work with like an interactive touch interface? So we see something like, I'm talking about something like a capacitive stylus, or as we see like an Apple Pencil, or we see a lot of Chromebooks that now have a touch screen that can function with a variety of different input devices. Have you experimented with that, looked into that, gotten into that at all? Is that something that you have thought of, or something that is kind of not in your interest level?
So I have considered it. I haven't really gone beyond experimenting with Tinkercad and an iPad, unfortunately, but that would definitely make for a richer experience, especially with more touch capability. That's really what I was trying to aim for more of because it's a virtual space. So ultimately, uh, most of the tools are going to be virtual. It's kind of finding that balance to bring, okay, what can we do with our hands? Is there anything we can incorporate vocally? It's to make it a little bit more humanistic so it doesn't feel like you're staring at a screen constantly.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Cool. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and cut early. Thank you, everybody, for joining today and taking part in the experience.
Yes, and thank you, Andie, so much for such a great demonstration. We have about 15 minutes until the next presentation.